Before your feet even touch the floor, those very first few minutes of screen time are quietly rewiring exactly how your brain handles reward, focus, and motivation for the rest of your entire life.
Reward, focus, motivation. Look, we aren't just talking about some vague concept of phone addiction here. We are talking about the literal, physical alteration of your neurochemistry before you've even had a sip of water. Those first waking moments, they completely dictate everything that follows.
To see exactly how this happens, let's look at Mike. He's 29, and honestly, he represents millions of us. At 6:32 a.m., his alarm goes off, and instead of, opening his eyes to the room around him, his hand automatically reaches for that glowing screen while he's still half asleep. He hasn't consciously decided to do this. His hand just moved on its own.
Section 1. The morning problem. So, is it just harmless checking? Well, to Mike, and let's be real, to most of us, it kind of feels like it. You just seeing what you missed, right? But in reality, Mike is flooding his brain with notifications, headlines, and an infinite scroll way before his brain is even fully awake.
So why does this happen? Why is this morning compulsion so incredibly strong? Well, before we decode the fascinating brain science behind all this, if you want to master your brain's chemistry and learn more from our explainers, take a quick second to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. It really helps us out. All right, let's dive right into the root cause.
Section 2. The anticipation chemical. Meet dopamine. This specific neurochemical is what dictates Mike's entire morning. Now, we hear about dopamine all the time, but it is actually vastly misunderstood.
There is a massive core misunderstanding here. The myth is that dopamine is simply a pleasure chemical. But the biological fact? It's actually your brain's anticipation and motivation engine. It doesn't fire when you get a reward. It fires when you are expecting one.
This all relies on what's called a variable reward schedule. Basically, unpredictable reward patterns that trigger compulsive behavior. Think about it. When you open your phone, you have absolutely no idea how many notifications you'll have or if a message is good news or bad news. This exact unpredictability acts literally like a slot machine right in your pocket, making checking your phone compulsive rather than optional. Your brain is just aggressively chasing that next hit of uncertainty.
Section 3. Minute-by-minute mechanism. Let's break down the exact neurochemical timeline of Mike's brain, starting from the very first unlock of his device.
Okay, at second 0, the exact moment the screen lights up, his visual and prefrontal cortex activate instantly. By minute 1, as he starts scrolling, dopamine neurons are firing in short, rapid bursts, simply because the information is brand new. Then, by minute 3, the real damage begins: attention fragmentation. Jumping between apps forces the prefrontal cortex to rapidly context switch, which basically fragments his attention span for the entire rest of the day.
As Mike noted at 6:34 a.m., just 2 minutes in, he had already looked at 15 things. None of them mattered, but he couldn't stop. He was caught in this unnaturally fast loop of digital stimulation, pumping out dopamine way faster than eating a healthy breakfast or seeing the morning sunlight ever could.
Now, here's the crucial part. What happens next? Between minutes 8 and 15, Mike might see a stressful work email or a negative news headline. Boom. This triggers a huge rise in cortisol, your primary stress hormone. And when you mix dopamine with cortisol, you get that incredibly familiar wired but anxious feeling. And all of this before he's even gotten out of bed. The inevitable crash after this is pretty severe. Between minutes 15 and 30, your brain actually downregulates its dopamine receptors to compensate for that massive digital surge. The real-world effect? Normal, everyday life suddenly feels completely dull. And by hour 1, you hit what researchers call a motivation debt. Because your baseline dopamine just artificially dropped, you physically cannot muster the energy to start deep, focused tasks.
This quote perfectly captures Mike's struggle by 7:30 a.m. He sat down to actually start his work and just couldn't do it. Instead, what did he do? He opened his phone again. His brain was naturally craving more of the exact same rapid-fire stimulation that just wore it out in the first place. It's a total trap. And if you repeat this every single day, we see severe long-term compounding effects. In weeks 1 and 2, your synapses physically reinforce this habit loop through long-term potentiation. That just means reaching for the phone becomes fully automatic. By weeks 3 and 4, your baseline dopamine sensitivity shifts entirely. You actually need more stimulation just to feel normal. And by months 2 and 3, that's when chronic anxiety and severe focus issues really set in.
Section 4. Delaying the digital surge. Okay, I know this sounds pretty daunting, but here is the good news. These short-term spikes and dips are immediately reversible, and even those deeply entrenched long-term habits can absolutely be broken by consciously changing how you wake up.
So here is your biological boot-up process. Step 1, and this is absolutely crucial. Simply delay that first phone check by just 20 to 30 minutes. This alone gives your prefrontal cortex the time it needs to wake up naturally. Combine that with Step 2, getting some natural light exposure, and Step 3, hydrating with a big glass of water. By doing this, you are letting your natural cortisol and dopamine rhythms regulate themselves without any digital hijacking.
Section 5. Your new morning routine. The ultimate takeaway of this explainer is super simple. Protecting those first few waking moments of your day physically protects your motivation, your focus, and your mood for the entire rest of the day. You're actively taking back control of your brain's reward system. We'd really love to hear from you guys on this one. Be honest, how many minutes after waking do you currently check your phone? Let us know down in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to like this explainer and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on these deep dives.
Because you definitely won't want to miss what we are covering next. We'll be teasing apart exactly how early and late screen exposure, specifically blue light, physically shifts your sleep rhythms and changes your body's entire internal clock.
This is general information. Always consult a doctor for personal medical advice.